Greetings! I have decided to redo my video of Sven Strob's power module board with overcharge protection. This is his version 2.241. You can see it's got the overcharge protection circuits here. And the first thing I want to point out is right here, you can see the notch on that header pin. That's where he would like for his boards to be facing to keep them universal and modular. So you want to make note of the P plus where P1 is, because the DT holes are not used. So you want to line up the top two holes, and then we're going to get those soldered in first. I'll get this one first, one heated up, get my board nice and level, let it cool off, then I'll go to one down the other end. Now you want to make sure you get enough heat on these, because the trace paths are not on the bottom, they're actually on the top side only. So you want to make sure you get it hot enough that the solder flows down into those holes. So let me go ahead and get those all done up real quick. Trying not to make too much uncomfortable silence. And just to make things easy for myself, I spin the board around to get to the other side. Make sure I'm getting plenty of heat on each one of these. Get that solder to flow through. Alright, now I'm going to start tinning all my connections. I'm going to switch to my thicker solder. On the fuse holder, I only tin one side. And the reason being is if you do both sides, you'll never get that thing flat. Now, you don't want to put a lot of solder on here, just enough to get it coated. Because otherwise it'll be sitting up too high, it'll be uneven, and it'll be cosmetically less appealing. And I'm kind of picky with the way I like for things to look. So just a little dab, just to get it completely coated, because you're going to add more solder when you put the battery cell holders on there. And one thing I want to point out, I know it's probably going to be kind of hard to see from here, that Sven has improved upon. I don't know if any of you have had a problem where you've gone to build a board, you go to put your batteries in, and they're shorted out because the pads were so close to the foil paths that the solder overlapped and created a bridge. Well, one of the things that Sven did, which I really like, is he made the spacing a little bit more. And I'm going to try to get this a little bit closer to the camera. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if you're going to be able to or not. But if you look on there, yeah, it's coming out. Oops, sorry. You can see that spacing there next to the solder pads. So you got lots of good space to not have to worry about doing those bridges. That is a big improvement in my book. And I very much like that he did that. As with the older style boards, I would put them together and then I would ohm each thing out before I put batteries in, just to make sure I didn't have any solder bridges because they're hard to see with the eye. And that just worked out quite well. And there is another improvement that when I get done with this, I'm going to show you that a lot of us are used to cutting those little nipples off the bottom of our cell holders. Well, Sven took those into account and put holes in these boards so that they line up. And it is awesome. After I did my first initial video, he messaged me immediately and corrected me and letting me know that he did that. I was like, oh, no kidding. I didn't even notice. So, all right, now that we got that done, you see here, you got these little holes he's got. I don't know how hard that is to see in the camera. Try to go to the other side of the board. But you got these holes here, and then there's down along the edge. And those line up with these little guys here. Oops. I keep getting it off camera, I'm sorry. Yeah, you can see that real good. So the first one, we'll put into place and get it to line up. And of course, I didn't do a real good job of that. There we go. And this one, flip over, get it to line up in this one down here. Same thing with here. And sometimes if you put too much solder on there, it gets a little bit difficult to get them to sit where they're supposed to. So you got to keep that in mind, that when you go to add solder, it's going to move those down. But they're pretty good placeholders. As I say that, I'd move that one. That's great. So now I'll get this one in place. And now, as I always do, one side first, just to make sure. There we go. Like I said, add in solder afterwards. They got holes in them, so the solder will go through. And then the solder on the bottom will melt, and you get a nice, good, solid connection. Notice they're not really moving with these holes in there, or with those pinholes for the alignment marks on the battery holders. That makes life a lot easier. In my last video, most of these kind of got a little angled a little bit, and I had to go back and fix them. This is much nicer, and as I say, that one moves because the solder's got holding it up a little bit from the mark. There we go. Sure, got a good enough heat. And that's gonna need a little more. There we go. I'll spin it over. Check my alignments. They all look good. So now, solder this side down. This is a huge time saver. Oops, of course I moved this one. With those pins in there. I am very, very happy with this new version of the board. Goes together quickly, easily. And cleanly. And I really like that. Some of the older boards, a lot of my holders, if you look at them, some of them have got a little bit of an angle to them to get them to where they weren't shorting out anymore, which I really didn't care for. All right, now same thing, other side. Alignment pin, alignment hole, right there. There. You can kind of feel them pop into the holes. Like I said, as long as you didn't put too much solder on them, on those pads, they usually drop right in, and you know right where they got to go. I got a little bit too much on that one. There we go. Yep, I got too much on that one too. I see it moving around. So we're going to heat it up. Get some solder on there, get it back into place. There we go. Now this one moved on me, I think. Yep, sure did. Huh. Probably because my solder's mounted up. Yeah, it is. I can see it. All right. So we're going to heat up this side first, since that's the side that's sitting high. And then I just felt it drop in. So that's perfect. So like I said, it's important to just put enough solder on those pads just to get them coated. Because if you put too much, you'll have happen what just happened to me there. And the solder was sitting so high that the pins wouldn't go into the holes on the board. And the rest of these dropping right into place. That one started to move a little bit, but the pin caught it again. I really can't stress enough how much I like that those pins are actually useful. They're putting so many together boards of having to snip so many of those off. It's nice to not have to mess with that step anymore. I'm sure as you build these, and if you've built any of the older ones, you will appreciate that as well. Alright, that's that. Now, last but not least, get my trusty tweezers and get my fuse holder in place. Get that solder good and hot. And of course, I always have problems getting this thing to do what I want it to do. There we go. Come around to the other side. Add some solder to help heat it up a little bit. Get that good and soldered, and then I go back and redo the first side, just to make sure that I got a good connection. That's it, board's together. All that's left is putting in these tiny fuses that I have a hard time keeping a hold of. Get that in there. And voila, the board is done. All you got to do now is populate it with batteries, add it to your power wall, and as you can see, these are dual-sided. Every single board is dual-sided. It is only single-sided if you choose for it to be single-sided and only add cell holders to one side. These will be on my site, heroeselectronics.com. We have a Facebook group, 18650 DIY. I will post those links in the description. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe. I would appreciate it. Thank you.